Okay, so this is our monthly Nebula webinar. So we're going to go ahead here and talk about Nebula, which is our cloud managed networking platform. As we go through today, if you have any questions, go ahead and send them in using the question and answer part of the Zoom interface. That's what I can see while I'm talking, and I'll do my best to answer questions as we go through today. So we'll just start with by talking a little bit about what is Nebula. So you see here on the title there, we are the first full stack cloud networking solution for SMB. You can see we got started and launched this all the way back in 2016. So we've been doing this for quite a while now. So what do we mean by full stack? What we mean by full stack is you can manage the core components of your network. So switches, access points, firewall gateways, things like that. And it was targeted at the SMB space. Now, obviously, we weren't the first one with a cloud networking solution. Probably one of the biggest ones back when we got our start was Cisco's Meraki. But Cisco's Meraki is aimed more at the enterprise space, both in terms of some of the features they have, but also in terms of their pricing. Much significantly more expensive. But we saw stuff like that and said, this is really great. This is a game changer for the people who can use it. But unfortunately, the people who get the most benefit out of this, couldn't afford those solutions. So we decided to make a Cisco Meraki-like solution that anybody can use. So Nebula itself gives you a centralized place to manage your equipment and your customers and their networks. So everything is done through a single pane of glass. There's no software that you need to purchase or install. There's no additional hardware needed like a local controller or a cloud key or anything like that. The agent is built into the hardware itself. We have what we call zero touch provisioning. And for 99% of you out there, when you're doing your installations, there's nothing you need to configure directly on any of the devices themselves. You don't need to put them in cloud mode. You don't need to, go in and point them at a server somewhere. It'll automatically switch over into cloud mode, and so you can manage it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that coming up here. And one of the key things here that differentiates us from our competition is the core version of Nebula here is free. So there's no cost to be able to use Nebula, and there's no limitation to the number of devices or the number of customers you can use with Nebula. So the components itself are obviously the hardware here. Let me go ahead and get the laser pointer going. So is the hardware itself. So from the Zyxel product selection here, we've got UTM firewalls, we have switches, access points, our security cloud routers now, and we do have a mobile router that we have, the LTE 7461 that's available here in North America. And then the core area where you do everything here is the Nebula Control Center, which we will abbreviate as NCC. And that's the web interface that you use to configure everything and all of your customers. You simply go to nebula.zyxel.com, log in, and everything is right there for you. We also do have a mobile app that you can use on phones. For those of you who want to use tablets, you just use the web browser. It's optimized for tablet dimensions. So when you're setting up a network, right, there's lots that goes into it, from purchasing the equipment, installing the equipment, how do you monitor the network, where do you store those logs, et cetera, et cetera. So what we've done is we took a look at, all of what goes into setting up and getting a network up and running, and we've tried to reduce that. So you end up spending less time and less money getting your network up and running when you do it using Nebula. So you can see here, we dramatically either remove some of the things you need to do or reduce the amount of time you spend getting them set up and running. And we'll talk again more about this as we go through. So I do want to talk about licensing. So again, Nebula itself, the core version here, we call it base pack, is absolutely free. No limitations on the number of devices or customers you can manage. And generally all of the core features of your hardware is available for you. We do have 2 upgrade paths for you, and we'll talk about the differences between all 3 versions here in a few slides. But we have what's called a Plus Pack, which unlocks a couple of extra features for you. Then we have our Nebula Pro Pack, which is aimed primarily at those of you that are MSPs and unlocks some additional features that are aimed at the MSPs there. We also have another license, which is an account license called the Nebula MSP Pack, and we'll go through it a little bit more in depth a little bit later. So setting up a Nebula network is something that can be done super easy. There's just a couple steps here. At some point, you need to log into nebula.zyxel.com, set up your customer. So your customer is what we would call an organization. So each of your customers you would want to set up as their own unique organization in the Nebula interface. And then under those organizations, you can have multiple sites. So if you have a customer, a fast food company, and they've got multiple locations, you would probably have one organization for that franchisee, and then for each one of the sites that they have, you would have individual sites underneath that organization. And once you've got that set up, you can start doing some of your basic configuration. Once you have settled on hardware and received the hardware, you simply use the mobile app to scan the QR code that's on the outside of the box, and then assign that hardware to your customer and to their site, and then you ship it on off to where it needs to be installed. Installation, put it where it needs to go, plug it in so it has power and internet access. It will automatically reach out onto the internet, check the cloud, see that it has been assigned to a site, and it'll go ahead and download latest firmware and the configuration that's been assigned for that site. And from that point on, you can start managing everything you've got there. Now, the Nebula interface itself has got a number of wizards set up in there that are designed to make it easy to get a new network up and running quickly with just basic connectivity. So you'll have some internet access, and then you can go into the more in-depth configuration after that. So as I mentioned before, to assign a device to a customer or to one of their sites, you simply scan the QR code that can be found on the outside of the box. The QR code can also be found on the belly label of the product itself. You simply scan that and assign it to your customer. With the exception here being our 1350 series switches, that one particular product line does require you to manually put the device into Nebula mode. And then some of our security appliances have a couple extra steps you have to go through just to verify that you are the owner and have control of that box. But everything else is just scan the QR code and go. So this is the Nebula Control Center. And again, that's where you're going to do basically everything that has to do with your hardware or your customers that are being managed with Nebula. So it's a single pane of glass for all of your Zyxel Nebula compatible equipment. We have that zero touch provisioning I was talking about earlier. So you don't need to do anything to your hardware to manage it in Nebula. It will automatically see that you want to manage it in Nebula and put itself into Nebula mode. And our interface has been designed from the ground up to make it easy for you to manage lots of customers and for those customers to have lots of sites underneath them. It's really quick and easy to get through and find who you're looking for and to jump from one site or one user to or customer to another. So when using the zero touch provisioning, basically the only thing you need to deal with is you need to have power and an internet connection. So we recommend when you're first setting up a network, even if you want to eventually use fixed IP on the network, we suggest using DHCP for the initial setup. And then you can always convert the devices over to fixed IP later. If for some reason, say you're upgrading some equipment on an existing non-Nebula network that does require you have fixed IPs, you can go into the device interface, set up that fixed IP information to be able to get it out onto the internet. And once it hits the internet, the Nebula cloud will take care of everything after that. So this is showing you here when you log into one of your customers' sites. This is the default view you're going to see. This is our dashboard. As you can see, there are a number of different widgets here. These are all customizable as to which ones you see. So you can have for each customer their own display based on what you're doing and what that customer is doing on their network. So you can go through, you can see things here like, how many clients are currently connected to the wireless network. If you're using one of our security gateways, we can tell you which individual applications are using your bandwidth going out. We can show you how much PoE is being utilized versus the budget of your switches, et cetera, et cetera. Up at the top here, we've got two drop-down menus. The one on the left here is a list of your customers. So to switch customers, you simply drop that down and choose your customer. And then the second pull down here will show then the sites that are available underneath that customer of yours. So then you can go through and jump from site to site just by dropping that menu down and selecting a different site. It'll automatically take you over there. And then the left-hand side of the screen here is where your monitoring and your configuration is done. So some of the things we can do here is we can do site-wide configuration really easy of most of your standard wireless configuration settings, things like your SSID, captive portal, VLANs, what sort of security you're using, et cetera, et cetera. We have the ability with just a simple check mark here to automatically turn a specific SSID into a guest SSID, putting it on its own unique VLAN and enabling some features there to isolate it from the rest of your local network. So by default, all of your access points are going to support all of your SSIDs that you can configure here, but you can use what we call tagging to tag specific access points. So certain SSIDs can only be broadcast on certain SSIDs or on certain APs if that's what you're looking to do. Mike here was asking a question about the previous slide where I was showing you the Nebula dashboard there, asking, can we change the icons on the left-hand side of the screen? So no, those icons are always going to be the same on the left. And those are going to be basically where your monitoring is and where your configuration options are. So you'll use those. So those all need to be there simply because most sites will need all of those on there. But the dashboard part in the center, that's all customizable. And as you add APs to the site, it will automatically download that configuration for you. Jumping over here to our switch interface, you can see here we have the ability to set schedules for PoE. So you can have, for instance, your Wi-Fi APs, or majority of them, turn off automatically at night when everyone's gone home, just to make you that much less of an attack or hacking vector for you. You can configure multiple ports at the same time, and those ports do not have to be on the same switch necessarily. Now you'll notice as we go through here, this is our first slide where we have some of these icons here, or some of these features have a Pro or a Pro and Plus icon next to them. So that implies that these features do require one of the additional licenses that we offer. So if it says Pro, it requires a Pro license. If it says Plus, it's part of the Plus licensing, which is also included in Pro. So basically, if it says Pro, you have to have Pro. If it says Plus, you can have Plus or Pro for that. Advanced bandwidth controls, vendor-based VLANs, those do require the Plus pack or higher. So the vendor-based VLANs is really cool. So for those of you that don't know, your Mac, every device on your network has a MAC address, and the first few digits of that MAC address are defined by who the maker of the product is. So what you can do with Nebula here with the Plus pack and higher is you can go in and set up a VLAN rule. So rather than doing it port-based, you can simply set it up so Nebula sees, oh, this device is connected. The first X number of digits of that device match this vendor. So I know to go ahead and put that on a specific VLAN. And it'll do that automatically for you. So the idea behind that would be like, for instance, if you're deploying VoIP phones, right? You want to have your VoIP phones on their own VLAN, separate from the rest of the corporate network. You're probably giving it higher priority as far as bandwidth and prioritization through the buffers goes. So rather than having to set that up on a port basis, you can simply do it based on the MAC addresses. So they'll automatically get assigned for you. We have the ability to do real-time and historic LAN monitoring as far as that stuff goes. And then if you're using the 1350 series of switches, those special security features that those switches have do require that you upgrade to the Plus or the Pro pack. So our mobile app works with all versions of Nebula here. So you can set it up again. The primary purpose of the mobile app is going to be for scanning those QR codes. You can also use the mobile app for keeping an eye on what's going on your customers' networks. And it will also give you some very basic configuration, although in general, full configuration always is going to require the web browser. But if you have Plus or the Pro Pack, you can use the mobile app to also give you push notifications when certain types of devices go offline or when licenses have some issues. So going on here, this is a feature we have that's part of the Nebula Control Center interface. It does require the Pro Pack, and that is a year-long log that basically tracks all of your configuration changes. So if something goes funny on your network, you can go through there and try to look for recent configuration changes to see if that maybe is what caused it, or maybe you suspect a configuration change is what caused it, but you can look the log and see, wait a minute, that was done 6 months ago. Clearly this just happened, so it probably isn't that. We have misconfiguration protection, which is available in the free version of Nebula. And basically, it makes sure that you don't screw something up when you're changing IP addresses around or when you're changing VLANs around, so you accidentally cause a device to go offline or become unreachable. We will detect that that is happening and we will stop it from happening. And then all versions of Nebula give you the ability to set up firmware schedules. So when new firmware is available, we can automatically send those and push that out to the connected devices and do it on the schedule that works best for you and your customer. So one of the nice things here in the Nebula interface is we do have Google Maps integration. So you can put your customers' sites on a Google map that's part of the Nebula interface, just to give you a better idea of, visually where each site is if your customer has multiple sites. And then when you drill down to a specific site, you can go ahead and import in floor maps and go ahead and position the individual devices on those floor maps. So if you, for some reason, have to send a tech on site down the road at some point, they'll be able to log in and be able to see where they should be looking for that particular device. With the Plus and Pro pack, we also add the ability here to do a automatic topology view, where we will go ahead and list all of the devices on the network and show you which devices are connected to which other devices. Again, it's a handy tool when you're doing troubleshooting. Hey, this access point no longer is getting an internet connection, so you can quickly see what switches it plugged into, so you can find out maybe, someone unplugged it from the port, something like that happened. And then we've got our live tools, the ability to easily troubleshoot things going on there, things like performing ping and traceroute commands from individual devices on the network. So something here that we have that requires the Plus and Pro pack is we have the ability to go in here and set up these summary reports and have them automatically generated and emailed to you on whatever schedule you would like. You can also set these up. Whoops. You can also set these up to be sent out to your customers. So you can give them a proactive report of what's been going on in their network, and you can add your own logo to that email when it gets sent out, so it has your own branding on it. So some other items here that are part of the Pro Pack and do require Pro Pack here is we have the ability to do between site synchronization. So certain settings, we can go ahead and push them out to all sites underneath one of your particular customers. We have the ability to clone settings from one switch to another, the ability to back up and restore switch configuration settings, and the ability to use a template, which has certain settings automatically pre-populated for you, just to help speed up the configuration process for you on the switches. So we have the MSP portal. So this is something that requires that you have an MSP license. So the MSP license is assigned to an individual admin, and any admin account that has an MSP license, when they log in, they will automatically get access to these extra features on any customer that that admin account has access to. So one of the main views it shows you here is it's got the ability to go in and show you all of your customers that you are managing, show you with a snapshot view of what's going on all of their sites, how many devices are online, offline, license issues, anything like that that may be going on. And then it gives you some other stuff that it can do as well. So one of the things that it does here is it allows you to add your logo to the Nebula interface. So if you're allowing your customer to log into Nebula, so either their IT guy can do his own management, or just so somebody there can log in as a view-only user to see what's going on the network, you have the ability to basically replace our logo with your logo and our support contact information with your support contact information. Another nice tool, if you have the MSP license here, is the ability to assign your fellow admins to teams and then deploy those teams to individual sites. So rather than needing to go through and individually add and remove admins as new people come and as people go, you can simply assign them to teams, assign those teams to different customers, and then as somebody leaves or comes, you simply add them to the team and it'll automatically get pushed out to all of the customers and sites that are assigned to that team. And it gives you the ability to synchronize certain settings between customers at the org level. And then lastly, another cool feature, and this is one that a lot of people have gone through here, um, is if you have the MSP license, all of your orgs that you have the ability to manage will be able to get email and push notifications. It does not require that they be Plus or Pro Pack as they would normally. So normally you need a Plus or a Pro license to get those email alerts and push alerts. With that MSP license, every org that you have access to, regardless of whether it's the free or if they're using Plus or Pro, will have access to those notifications. So Mike has a question here, probably a slide or two ahead of where he sent it in, saying some of the slides there show Pro and Plus on the features. And so do you need licenses for both? So the answer to that is it's just there because it's available on either license. So again, if it says only Pro, you have to have a Pro license. If it says Plus, that feature is available both with Plus and with Pro. So we'll spend a little time here. I've now got a list here of all of feature comparisons between the free version, the Plus version, and the Pro Pack. I know it's kind of boring here. If you want this to reference yourself, just go to our website. Just search Google Zyxel Nebula. It'll take you to the Nebula landing page, and we have a version of this exact same set of slides available for you as a PDF download for reference. So just showing here, regardless of which version of Nebula you have access to, you have an unlimited number of devices that can be registered and an unlimited number of customers that you can manage through Nebula. Our zero-touch auto deployment is available on all versions of Nebula. Over-the-air firmware management, all versions of Nebula. Access to the mobile app, all versions of Nebula. One area here now where we're getting some differences is when it comes to the log information. So Nebula has the ability to store your logs in the cloud for you. So the free version of Nebula only stores a day's worth of logs. It's a rolling 24 hours. If you upgrade to the Plus pack, we store a week worth of logs in the cloud. And then with the Pro pack, we store a year's worth of logs in the cloud. Now, this is just if you want us storing those logs in the cloud. We do have the ability to export our logs to a syslog server. So if you want, you just need the base version of Nebula, you don't want to pay for it, but you want a little bit more log information, you can set up your own syslog server somewhere and point Nebula to it, and then you can store as much logs as you want without needing to upgrade to a different license. Another area where we've got some differences here are when it comes to admin accounts. So this is per organization. So again, when you're setting up a Nebula, you're going to set up each of your customers as their own organization. So for each of your customers with the free version of Nebula, you can have 5 admin accounts with access to that customer. If you're using the Plus version, you get 8 admin users per organization. And then with Pro Pack, it's an unlimited amount. Another feature we have here was we have a cloud hosted authentication server. So you use this for MAC filtering or for 802.1x authentication. So if you want to use that, the free version of Nebula gives you 50 entries into that database. The Plus pack gives you 100 entries into that database. And the Pro pack is an unlimited number of entries into that database. And just like with any other standard networking equipment, we do also support the use of a Radius server for doing this authentication. So these limitations is only if you were using our cloud authentication server. It does not apply if you're running your own Radius server to do the authentication. And some other stuff here, setting up firewall rules, SSID scheduling, PoE scheduling, that's available on all versions here for you. MAC filtering and 802.1x authentication is available on all versions. And the ability to use a captive portal is available on all versions of Nebula. So now on this next slide, these are features that are only available with the Plus or the Pro pack. So advanced firmware scheduling requires Plus or Pro. So the standard version of Nebula, you can set up schedules for when you want firmware to be updated. With Plus and Pro Pack, we give you a lot more granularity. You can set up different rules based on the type of device. You can have different rules for your APs versus your firewalls. You can also go in and set up schedules for individual devices. So you may have, hey, I want almost all the APs done at this time, but these other 3 APs over here, I want them updated at a different time. You can do that with the Plus and Pro Pack. The advanced reporting features we talked about earlier requires the Plus or the Pro Pack. That automatic topology view I showed you earlier requires the Plus or the Pro Pack. Email and push notifications requires the Plus or the Pro Pack or the MSP license. Wi-Fi vouchers require Plus and Pro Pack. So let me explain here real quick. Wi-Fi vouchers are for those trying to do sort of a commercial public hotspot, like say at a small hotel or a coffee shop where you want to sell users access to your public hotspot. That requires Plus or Pro Pack. With the free version of Nebula, you get your standard captive portal. You can have people log in with a username and password. You can have them log in with Facebook. You can have them simply agree to a terms of service. So there's lots of options when it comes to the free version of Nebula, when it comes to that captive portal. But if you want to charge people and have individual user accounts that are managed with Nebula, that requires the Plus or the Pro Pack. Advanced switch control. We talked about some of these features earlier. These were things like the vendor-based VLANs based on MAC address, advanced IGMP settings, et cetera. That requires the Plus or the Pro Pack. And then from here on out, everything that I talk about requires the Pro Pack. So that user audit and change logs, Pro Pack, the ability to sync, clone, and use templates, Pro Pack, the ability to back up and restore your switch settings, Pro Pack, the ability to access the command line interface via Nebula, Pro Pack. The ability to go ahead and open a ticket directly with our headquarters requires the Pro Pack. Otherwise, you contact us locally and open the ticket with our local support team. The ability to use some of our APIs that we have available for integration requires the Pro Pack. Some of our advanced Wi-Fi settings, the access to our machine learning, which can automatically tweak your Wi-Fi settings based on what it's seeing, that requires Pro Pack. Some of the advanced AAA features on a Radius server, that requires Pro Pack. So that's like dynamic pre-shared key. Facebook Wi-Fi, which is different from Facebook login. So the free version gives you the Facebook login. Pro Pack gives you access to Facebook Wi-Fi, which is a specific service they offer. Dynamic VLAN assignments, things like that, that requires the Pro Pack. Some of the more advanced radio settings and stuff on your wireless access point requires the Pro Pack. Static routing on your switches requires the Pro Pack. Access to some of those surveillance features in the 1350 series switches, Pro Pack. So that's the main access to our CDR, Pro Pack. So those are the main differences. So, depending on what you're doing, you may need Plus or Pro. The vast majority of our customers that are being managed using the free version of Nebula. So again, that's something that really sets us apart from our competition. So to use Plus or Pro Pack, maybe I should go back a slide. To use Plus or Pro Pack, basically every device under an organization needs to have a license for Plus or for Pro to upgrade to that level. So if you've got 15 devices on your customer's network, all 15 of those devices need a Plus Pack license to turn on those features for that customer. Same goes for Pro Pack. Every device needs a license to get on there. Now, if one of your licenses expires, you'll be given a 15-day grace period to add a license to continue using those features. Otherwise, if you fail to do that, it will drop back to the free version of Nebula. Same thing happens if you add some additional devices onto your customer's network that don't come bundled with any licenses. You'll be given 15 days notification to go ahead and get a license before that customer falls back to the free version of Nebula. And again, the licensing is done at an org level, which should be your customers. So you can have some customers using free, some customers using Plus, some customers using Pro, based on whatever their particular needs are. So now the MSP license, as I mentioned earlier, is an admin license. You assign it to a specific admin user, and then that admin user gets access to those extra features that the MSP license offers. So that's our MSP portal, adding your branding to those orgs, using the access to the admins and teams, etc. So you're going, well, this sounds interesting. What do I need to buy to know that the device is compatible with Nebula? So what you're looking for is the words Nebula Flex. And almost everything that's really aimed at the business space these days is Nebula Flex based. So when we first launched Nebula in 2016, we went the Meraki Cisco route, where we had a line of products that only worked your traditional way and a line of products that only worked managed in the cloud. Since then, we've phased out most of those, and now just about everything is what we call Nebula Flex. So we have one set of hardware, and you can manage those devices the traditional way through a direct web interface, through a command line, through SNMP, or you can choose to manage those devices in the cloud. So that's what Flex means. It'll give you the flexibility to decide if you want to manage it in the cloud or not with the same hardware. Again, the cloud itself is free, so it gives you flexibility. So maybe you don't want the cloud today, but maybe down the road you do. Nebula Flex helps get you there. So Nebula Flex Pro, you will see some devices labeled in that. And basically all that means is it's the same as Nebula Flex, but that device comes bundled with a 1-year Pro Pack license. That's pretty much it. In the case of the access points, it actually enables a third mode for management. So Nebula Flex Pro APs, they can be managed with a local area controller. So if you don't want to deal with the cloud, but you also don't want to deal with individual management of your access points and you want to use a local controller, you want to buy a Nebula Flex access point to be able to do that. So it's really easy to switch back and forth between cloud mode and your traditional standalone management mode. Basically, when you plug in and turn on a device, by default, it is in standalone mode. If you scan that QR code and assign it to a customer on a site, within a few minutes, that device will see that you have done that and will automatically reboot into cloud mode. If at any point you decide you don't want to manage that device in the cloud anymore, you'd like to go back to standalone, just log into Nebula, remove that device from your inventory, and it will automatically reboot itself in standalone mode. The one key thing to keep in mind here is some of the features are a little bit different between modes. And because of that, the configurations are not shared between modes. So, if you're using a Nebula and you decide to put it in standalone, it will lose all of its configuration and you will need to reconfigure that device. So just kind of showing here a sort of a breakdown of our different products here. Oh, Martin's got a question here first. Can you tell us a little bit about the new cloud monitoring mode? And I'm not sure which feature that's a reference to. Maybe you can type in a little bit better thing. Now we do have a cloud saving mode, which is available on the free version of Nebula. And basically what happens if you're using the free version of Nebula and you don't log in for a certain period of time. Okay, thanks, Martin. Let me finish this now. I'll get to you. So that one, so if you don't log into Nebula for a while with the free version of Nebula, it will stop storing log information in the cloud. So when you log in, you'll have to then re-enable that to get it to start collecting logs in the cloud. As far as this new cloud monitoring mode on the firewall products, I don't know the answer to that. So I apologize that I don't know the answer for that. Go ahead and just send us in an email with that question and we'll get you the answer for now. So you can email me. It's Sean R, SHAWNR at Zyxel.com, and I can get the answer for you. Or just reach out to your salesperson, whether it's Jacob, Andy, or David with that question, and they'll get you the answer. Either put you in touch with me or put you in touch with our sales engineer. But I'm not familiar with that feature on the firewall products. I'll need to talk to Try to get the answer for that. Paul has a question here also. If one of the switches from standalone to Nebula and back to standalone, what configuration will it have? So the answer to that is basically anytime you put it into Nebula cloud mode, it will download the configuration from the cloud and use whatever that cloud-based configuration is. Anytime you put it back into standalone mode, I believe you will have to reconfigure it from scratch. I believe when going from cloud to standalone, it fully wipes the configuration. I do not believe it stores like a backup of the prior standalone configuration. So I'm pretty sure you have to start over from scratch on that case. Okay, that's it for questions for the moment. So just showing you here the different models. So the top row here is going to be products that are Nebula Flex. So on the APs, it's basically everything that is 2 or 3 digits, anything 2 digits basically, or anything 3 or more digits, it starts with a 1 or a 2. Switches, it's our 1930 and 1920 V2 and 1915 series switches, and then our new security gateway, the SCR50AXE. And I still think we aren't actually fully shipping those other than as samples, but they will be fully available here very shortly. On the Pro side of things, that is our business class AP. So that's anything with 3 or more numerals in it. It starts with 5 or 6. On the switch side of things, it's our 2220 series, our 1350 series, and our 3800 series. When it comes to our security products, it gets a little bit weird. So if the USG Flex products are sold both with a license bundle and without a license bundle. So if you buy the bundle, you get 1 year Pro Pack as part of that bundle. If you buy the unbundled version, you don't get any Pro Pack license. The ATP series comes bundled with 1 year Pro Pack license. And to extend that out, you just buy a gold license, and the gold license will always include the Pro Pack as well. And then our LTE 7461, which is a 4G outdoor router, it also comes bundled with 1 year Pro Pack. So Bob's got a question here. I'm using the base version. Why do all of my devices show as unlicensed? And that's because that's how we consider the base pack. The base pack is going to be the default mode. And then Plus Pack or Pro Pack, those will be the license. So if it shows license, it means you have purchased a Plus or a Pro Pack and assigned those to your devices for that customer. So once those licenses have expired, it'll fall back to unlicensed, which is the free version of Nebula. So we're almost done, guys. So one thing I do want to talk a little bit about here is the Nebula architecture, because we do get a lot of questions on this. So just a couple things here. Our Nebula cloud is hosted in Amazon AWS. So because of that, you can really scale up your deployments without hitting any sort of major issues. You can continue adding customers and devices. You don't have to worry about having to buy from us, additional hosting power or resources or things like that. It's all there for you, ready to scale whenever you're ready to go. We have a 99.99% uptime SLA. Again, we're hosted by AWS, so there's not a lot of downtime with AWS in general. But if for some reason AWS goes down, or, just locally, maybe, your fiber gets cut or whatever it happens to be, everything on that Zyxel site will continue to work just as it was while it had internet connection. So internet is not required to keep things going. You lose the ability to manage it, but everything will continue working until that internet gets restored. I know some of our competitors out there, after a day or two, the devices stop functioning properly. Ours do not. Ours will keep going basically infinitely without an internet connection. So one of the questions we get a lot is, hey, we're interested in the cloud, but my customer is really concerned that, you're going to be looking at their network, or you're going to see what's going on. So to make this very clear here, the cloud is only seeing management traffic. So basically the setting changes that you're making in the cloud getting pushed out to the devices, and then the log information being sent from those devices back to the cloud for storage. None of your users' data is going to our cloud. Traffic that's for the LAN stays on the LAN. Traffic going out to the internet goes directly out to the internet. It does not get pushed through our cloud first. So there's no concerns there when it comes to privacy and things like that. We are an international company, so we are GDPR compliant and compliant with just about every country's out there's privacy and security requirements. So just to sort of summarize things here, it's easy to start using Nebula. It's very easy to scale. You can continue adding as you need to. There's no little investment behind the cost of the hardware itself, unless you're using the Plus or Pro Pack, and even then our licensing is ridiculously affordable. Easy to set up and configure, easy to implement, saves you time out in the field. You don't have to configure things out in the field. You just plug them in and get them online. Easy to maintain, easy to support. You've got easy access to all of your customers, all of their networks through zyxel.nebula.com, or excuse me, nebula.zyxel.com. It's easy to buy, right? You just probably buying the hardware you're already buying is probably Nebula compatible. You can always put it into cloud mode to play with it at some point here in the future if you want to. So just to keep you guys alerted here, we do have a YouTube channel. The North American channel is called Zyxel America channel. Again, we're a big international company. There's a lot of different Zyxel channels on there. So Zyxel America channel, that's where our webinars that we put on, almost all of those get recorded and uploaded to our YouTube within 24 hours or so of the actual webinar. We also have some case studies on there, guides, best practices, things like that. So check that out. And then if you want to connect to us at LinkedIn, we are at Zyxel-US-channel. And then lastly, while I'm waiting to see if you have any questions, currently there are none coming in. I do just want to point out here that we do have user forums. So just go to forum.zyxel.com, and that's a place where you can talk to other Zyxel users and installers. And those forums are monitored by both our support and our product management team. They will occasionally answer questions, but they're mostly checking out what you guys are talking about to get ideas for feature enhancements and to understand what features enhancements have the most priority. It's also the best place to go for release notes, security bulletins, things like that. You know, make it a habit of checking it out just to see if anything's going on that you should be aware of. Otherwise, that's going to be it today. We do presentations and webinars Tuesdays and Thursdays. In general, the Thursday presentations are like today's. They're not very in-depth. They're more of an overview, salesy type presentations. Tuesdays are generally some of our more in-depth, you know, how do I configure this? What are the best practices for that? Those are generally going to be on your Tuesdays. And again, if you missed one, there was one you wanted to see, it's probably on our YouTube page for you to watch at some other future time. I've got no questions, so I'm going to go ahead and end today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. I hope I see you at one of our future presentations. Thank you.